If somebody would have told us that we would be sitting here and our daughter, that she'd be in prison,
never,
that she would be trafficked,
and never would have thought
forced
that
into anything, we would have never.
And it was just like the year before all that, she was wearing a bunny suit for Easter.
She was the bunny and hiding Easter eggs on the front lawn with all the grandkids, and we had, big picture and, family. And so a year later, when, we would want her to be in the bunny suit again and start that as a new tradition in the family, she's then behind 2 inches of glass in an orange jumpsuit. This man who became her trafficker, he came in as a knight in shining armor after just a tragedy, something that no woman should ever have to go through, of being gang raped. And he came as somebody who was going to save her from that and help her get her self-esteem back. But he turned out to be the worst thing that she could have ever imagined.
He seemed to be like a really nice guy, and he talked about his upbringing, how, it was kind of difficult.
Your past is past. So we wanted to give him, grace.
It all turned later, she started changing. And we really didn't know exactly what was going on. Started getting really moody. Instead of, before she was just so nice and sweet.
And then I started noticing her seeming like she was withdrawing, seeming like she was sad, just like a look of almost submissiveness when he was around. Just this look that she was almost like a servant.
Everything had to be with him and not with us anymore. She was wearing clothes that she don't normally wear. I asked her about her school. How come school's falling off? What's going on? And, I started finding out he's telling her she don't need to go to school.
She was getting, weaves or getting, wearing her hair in blue and stuff that was, it just looked horrible. And and I told her, I said, Adriana, you have whole hair. I don't want to put you down, honey. I said, but it looks like a cheap prostitute, in the way that, and unbeknownst to me, you would never think that, that's happening, to her. I was in fear for my daughter. I felt like that, something was wrong. I can't pinpoint it, but I felt like she was being hurt. So I called the police and just spoke to the regular, non-emergency number and said, I'm afraid for my daughter. I don't know what to do. I'm trying to find out about this person. They told me there's nothing they can do. Call back when she's hurt. We were asleep in bed. Adriana came running into the room, and I just remember, being woken up by my door being flung open. Adriana running in saying, I need the keys, I need the keys. He's in trouble, he's in trouble. And I just remember her grabbing the keys and running out of my room. And I startled because it was like 2:30 in the morning. I ran to the door, opened the door, and there were 6 police cars in front of my house. That's when we found out from the police that another girl was here in the home with them and had accused him of rape here in our home. You're in shock. You're literally in shock when somebody's telling you that, and you're frozen. And then wondering why she is saying that he needs help. And we didn't realize that control, but it really is that manipulation, that mind game stuff, the stuff that he was telling her, that we found out later on that, if she wouldn't do, certain things, or if she would threaten to leave him, or she would say, I can't do this, that he would threaten to kill himself, and that she had to be his savior. It's unbelievable.
Sometime later, they came back to meet with us, to talk with us. That's when I got in his face and I started telling him. I told him that he was not right. I said, you're not, you don't need to be with her, with my daughter, because you're no good. He gets mad, and Adriana's yelling, don't be yelling at my boyfriend. And when I turn around to look at her, all of a sudden, he's clocking me. He gets up and hits me. Hit me on my jaw, hit me on my right side. I fell down. And then while I'm down, boom, he hit me again on the other side. And by that, man, I felt something's messed up. And both sides of my jaw, I find out, are broken. And my son, he came in there, he's holding the guy, and Melinda just said, get him out, just get him out. And he got him out, and it was a good thing that they did, because even with all the pain I was feeling, all I had in my eyes was red. I wanted to hurt somebody bad. My wife got me to the hospital. I went through surgery, and they had to put some little plates in there and screws and to redo my jaw. And it's sent our whole family into a tailspin.
I got a call, I was at work and got a call from Jeff, who was at the time, he was the sergeant in charge of this case. And he told me, he said, Melinda, I have something to tell you. Your daughter is in custody. I just wanted you to know that she's been arrested. And I was in disbelief, utter disbelief. This is not Adriana. This is not Adriana. We went to court and I talked to the sergeant or the detective who was in charge of the case, but he met us in the lobby of the courthouse, and it was him as well as probably 4 other detectives that were working the case, detectives, officers, plus the DA. Then I knew that it had to do really with her trafficker. We went up into a conference room at the courthouse, and we sat there, and the first thing he said to me and my family was, he said, Melinda, I want you to know that he's been arrested. And that's the first thing that they wanted us to know, was that because they knew my daughter was a victim. Initially, it was my daughter as arrested. Then they arrested 2 other girls who were actually other victims of his as well. So they were victims of his trafficking. And then 2 other guys who were arrested. So there were a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So when it made the news, it said that he had been arrested for pimping and pandering, for charges of kidnapping, rape, victims as young as 13 on up to 22. My daughter was the 22-year-old. And at that point, I found out that they had other moms who were actually calling them because they also had daughters who knew the same person, who the same person was coming to their home, the same person that they were afraid for their daughters. He got 27 and a half years in prison.
Yeah, 28 and a half, roughly.
And that was a plea bargain. So he was facing probably 3 life terms. Well, there was this competition that he would have them do. What we found out between each of them was seeing who would be more loyal, who would be the one to do what he wanted them to do, and even after they were arrested, and even after Adriana was arrested, the other victims in the case were even saying that he was making her assault other girls. One of the letters that we found that she had written in her diary while she's been in custody is that she was afraid because he made her, and he made them, leave everybody, isolate them from their families, get them away from their families. And Adriana wrote to her best friend, he was like her brother, that, I'm sorry that I let him get me away from you, that he seemed nice at first, and then it turned all bad. Then he started hurting me, and he made me prostitute myself. He burned her, he beat her. Adriana told us of a time here in our home when he would make her stand on the edge of the bed and beat her legs until she couldn't stand up. Then he'd make her stand up again and beat her again till she couldn't stand up, and he would keep doing that till she just couldn't stand any longer. And she said that I was afraid to leave, and I was afraid for my mom and dad because I know what he's capable of doing, even from behind bars. And then she tried to carry it all on her own, to try to deal with this, trying to, not want to scare us on the one hand, not wanting to figure out how to get away from this man also, and then not get us hurt, knowing that even your parents are victims. Even your parents are being held hostage. Even your family's being, your grandparents, your parents are threatened. And she was sentenced to 5 years for an assault. She just was sentenced in April, for the beginning of April, on her dad's birthday, April 9th. The judge was wonderful and was able to actually, my husband asked in court if we could hug her, and she was shackled and handcuffed. The judge said yes, and so she walked with her feet shackled and her hands in handcuffs, and she put her arms around me and we hugged. Everybody in the courtroom was crying, and I haven't touched her in 2 years, but that's the only time I've been able to hug her and touch her and feel her soft skin and feel her cheek on mine.
I believe that God spared her life because she could have got 15, 20 years. People from Berkeley and everybody they evaluated her and found that she was totally a victim too, but because of her participation, even though she wasn't willing totally, but she was involved, so she got the time she did, but she's safe.
She will be home one day, but because of the things that he made her do for whatever reason, for whatever his purposes were, the manipulation and the torture and all of those things, physically and mentally, she's gone and she's in prison. When you feel like there's something that your child isn't telling you, go with your gut. If you're afraid for your daughter's safety, if you're afraid for your child, seek help. Don't wait, because waiting and trying to figure it out for yourself can sometimes be too late.
You have to separate victims, because a lot of victims are being tried as perpetrators too.
It's trafficking. People are being used. People are being sold. People are being marketed like they were a piece of meat, a piece of clothing. It's time to take the blinders off and realize they're not out there by choice. And for our family and even for Adriana, I think we are hugely supportive of the CASE Act and what it stands for and why it is imperative that it's passed. Tell people about it. Get people aware of it. Our daughter, among the other victims, in this case in particular, were trafficked via the internet. So having these things disclosed would be huge, would save our girls, would save our daughters. It's imperative that the CASE Act is passed.